Dear Lord, may my words find their source in you. You alone are worthy of all worship and praise. May the words offered this day nourish us and encourage us in our journey with you. As I pray in Jesus' name. Amen. Please be seated. Well, it's a joy to be with you. It's a joy to bring greetings from the Diocese of Windsor, which is in the southern third of Saskatchewan, a beautiful province which is hard to spell yet easy to draw. It's a nice rectangle. And so from southern Saskatchewan, I know there's lots of people who would dearly love to be with you today and to be part of this service, but they are with me in prayer as they are praying for you and our worship time today. It's been an amazing journey. I've been on a cycle ride. I set off on May the 19th from Victoria in Vancouver Island. And here we are in central Newfoundland. Just a few days to go. On Tuesday at 1 p.m. we're expecting that we'll be in St. John's, Newfoundland, and we'll be at mile 0. And that is the end of Highway 1. And then we'll go to the Atlantic Ocean to dip the tyres and probably my feet into the ocean as a rest spot. The final gathering will be at Queen's College. We're thinking that there'll be a gathering around 2:30 in the afternoon, so please keep that gathering in your prayers, which will mark a fitting end to what has been an amazing journey. It's been 4 years in the making. I was a person that was 310 pounds in weight, so I've lost 94 pounds, plus a lot of preparation in getting this body ready at the age of 62 to be able to accomplish a cycle ride across Canada. And it is a big country. It is huge. When I thought of Newfoundland, I thought, Newfoundland, oh, that'll take a couple of days to cycle. And then I did a Google search and found out that it was over 900 kilometres just on Highway 1 alone. And so it was quite a surprise for me to find that out, that Newfoundland is so big as well. But there's a lot of similarities. The word Saskatchewan means fast flowing, swift current. And I've noticed, as I said last night, a lot of the streams and brooks and rivers here are fast flowing too, so it reminded me a little bit about home. So it's been an amazing journey, and Jesus went up a mountain in the Gospel today, with that beautiful song before we started about going up a mountain. Lots of scriptures include the mountains, don't they? And the Psalms talk about, place my feet upon a higher rock. When we go up high, we see things we don't normally see. And on this pilgrimage that I've been making across Canada, I've seen things I've not normally seen. It is an amazing land. But it's not just about the cycling. This has been based on a vision that I've had from God, that I embark on a pilgrimage of prayer, to lay a foundation of prayer all the way across Canada. Praying specifically for unity, for healing, for reconciliation. Just like in the Old Testament reading, that story about David and Bathsheba and all the mess and the awfulness of what happened in King David's life and what he caused to happen in Uriah's life, what he caused the whole nation to be in strife about. That one incident caused the death of many, many people. We live in Canada where our history hasn't been entirely wholesome. The Mi'kmaq still fighting for their rights here in Newfoundland to be recognized as a First Nations people here. Throughout Canada, many of the treaties, the wholesome desires, the agreements between Queen Victoria especially and others haven't been honored. We haven't been wholesome as a nation, as a church, or as a people. And we see much strife as a result. There's breakup in family life, in community life. We all know families and communities that are struggling. And so this call to pray for unity, to pray for healing, to pray for reconciliation, for all peoples, all cultural groups, has been laid on my heart. And so, as I've been cycling, on average 5 hours a day, has been a lot of time to pray. And it's been a wholesome activity to use all of that time to pray to God about these things. And so, one of the things I do on the cycle, as I'm praying, every hill, every mountain is dedicated to someone who's going through an uphill struggle in life. And those people that are on severe struggles, then they get the higher hill. And those whose life is one crest after another going up, one struggle after another, the biggest hills are dedicated to them. It's so important that we pray for one another and that we do engage in unity, in healing and reconciliation wherever we are, in this community and all across Canada. One thing I've been learning is that we have to slow down as a people of God. Too many people are rushing about. I was one of them. Rushing from place to place. We get in the car, and we're so set on the destination that we don't even take in our surroundings. We don't appreciate the beauty that's all around us. We take for granted this absolutely amazing place that God has called us to live. Reminded me of a man I met in my parish in England before I came to Canada. So my first week in the parish, I crossed the road and this man came up to me and said, "Are you our new vicar?" And I said, "Oh yes, I am." He said, "Well, welcome to Scorby. You won't find that I'll go to your church, but it's good to know that we've got a vicar at least." I said, "That's very kind of you." And then he said, "Well, what do you think of this place?" I said, "It is absolutely beautiful." And that road that takes you from this village all the way to the city of Lincoln, in Lincolnshire. That road across the hillside, where you get an amazing view across the Trent Valley. It is spectacular. And the man said, "It's not that good." I said, "Well, yesterday when I drove it, it was spectacular." He said, "I drive along that road, and I've done every day for the last 20 years. Believe me, I know there's nothing special about that route." And he walked on. The next week, there was a knock at the rectory door. And it was this man. And he said, "I don't suppose you remember me, do you?" I said, "Well, actually, I do." He said, "Well, you challenged me last week when we met on the road. And so this week I've been going down that road that I usually travel. And I've stopped many places along it." And he says, "You're right. It is beautiful. I've taken it so much for granted. Thank you. I probably won't come to your church, but thank you. You've made me and think again, and you've challenged me." Do we take for granted the beautiful place that God has given us to live? Do we take for granted the people we live with? Do we take for granted our spouse, our family? We are so busy in life, so rushed, we don't even take time to truly listen to one another. This is true for us as individuals. I'm sad to say it's true for us as a church. We need to slow down and listen. And be attentive. Attentive to the moment, attentive to each other, and especially attentive to God. David was not attentive to God when he got up from his sleep. We have to be a people who are authentic in our faith and live out that faith in a beautiful way. On a bike, you get to experience things you don't experience in a car. In a car, we get inside, as I said, we're so set on that destination, the windows are up, the air conditioning's on, the radio probably is on, and before we know it, we've arrived. On a bike, you get to stop immediately. If something catches your eye, you stop. And you are allowed then just to absorb the wonder. There's many places across Canada I've not taken a photograph of because a photograph would not do justice to the experience of the moment. Do we stop and allow the glory of the moment to impact our hearts and then to give praise to God for what He's showing us? On a bike, you get to smell the sage grass, the blossoms. You also get to smell some things you'd rather not smell. But even so, it's a reminder that you're alive. And in the mountains, when it was so hot, believe me, you've had it hot here. In the mountains, going through the Rockies, it was very hot when we were cycling through there. And what I'd never appreciated before, we've all seen those little waterfalls by the roadside. Bishop John, you probably have experienced this on a motorbike. But did you know that when you cycle past one of those waterfalls, something like a 15-degree drop in temperature? It is amazing. It's like a giant cooling fan or air conditioning room that you go through. It's as though God is saying, cool down. You need to. As we've journeyed along, you see things in nature that you've never seen before. There's an interaction. I was saying to a group last night, talking to them about an antelope that had jogged with me for a quarter of a mile. Can you imagine? Cycling along at 35 kilometers an hour, and this antelope is just springing in its step. It could have gone a lot quicker. It kept looking at me as if to say, can't you go any faster? But this lovely moment of interaction, the sign to me that God was in this journey and journeying and getting all of the animal kingdom to join in. And so everything from bees to birds to eagles in the sky have been signs along the way. One such day in Edmonton, there were 50 eagles soaring higher and higher. I don't know whether you've ever seen this sign. I stopped at the side of the road and I was just arms outstretched in awe of what I was seeing. Lorraine, who was in the support vehicle, came alongside and stopped, and she was really worried that perhaps something had gone wrong with the bike, and I was saying something like, "Oh God, why?" It was the first time that Lorraine had seen eagles because she'd been in the car. Jesus is the 3-mile-an-hour God. Walk with God, this poster says. The 3-mile-an-hour God wants us to slow down as a people and as a church, and appreciate one another, and appreciate the God-given place that we have been set here. Don't take it for granted. This is a journey with a purpose. It's praying for people, it's praying for communities, as I've said, but it's also a journey to raise awareness of the need for unity, healing, and reconciliation across Canada. I come from a diocese where we have the longest running residential school in Canada. It only closed in 1992. So within recent memory, we still have the memory of that school. It was a very poignant moment when we began this journey in Victoria to be met by members of the Songhees First Nation, a First Nation that had the highest number of residential school students in Canada. To be met by a people who had gone through so much, and to be embraced by them, to be prayed for by them, and to be blessed by them, was a very poignant beginning to this journey. Just like that reading from the Old Testament, we haven't kept our word, and our actions as a church and as a country have not been true and faithful to God's word. And a lot of people are still hurting as a result. This year marks 25 years since Primate Michael Pearce gave his apology to First Nations people over the residential schools and our involvement in it as a church. This year also marks 10 years since the Government of Canada made its apology to First Nations people. There's been so many fine words spoken about apology, but there is a need to move beyond the words and into meaningful action. My hope is that on this journey across Canada, through the people I've been meeting like yourselves, but also in the newspaper reports and the radio and the TV broadcasts that I've been involved in, I'm hoping that more and more people would open up their hearts and to make a welcome for those who have suffered much, those who have not known that full love of Christ that a church should bring and a Christian should bring. And so it's quite a poignant day to have this final Sunday service with that reading about David and Bathsheba. For there are many parallels there in our history as well. There have been many setbacks in this journey, just like there's been many setbacks for people in their journey, in their life in Canada. It's important that this journey does not end on Tuesday. The bike ride ends on Tuesday. This journey to unity, healing, and reconciliation cannot end. It has to be ongoing. And some people say, well, what good is a bike ride? Some people said that to William Wilberforce. What good is your one voice to end slavery? But with God, with the vision, He makes possible the impossible. That New Testament lesson, we have more than we can ask or imagine. We say it every Sunday. Glory to God. Do we believe that? Do we believe that God can make a miracle? He can, and He will. He just simply needs willing servants to walk with Him in a great journey of faith. We celebrate today William Wilberforce's day. Celebrate a life where he committed everything to abolish slavery. He never saw the end of slavery till his deathbed, and an act of pardon was passed that day. Can we go the course? Can we do the distance? Can we be a people that don't give up, even though there's many a setback along the way? Philip asked the question, 5 loaves and 2 fish? What's that amongst so many? And Jesus fed the 5,000. And there were 12 baskets over. Do we see the miracles? I've seen many a miracle on this journey across Canada. It's a miracle that I'm where I am now. It's a miracle that Lorraine is still alive after a really serious road accident just outside of Alban in Ontario, where both the car and the RV trailer were totaled. And Lorraine came out of that accident with a little bruise on her arm. Thanks be to God. There's been miracles that every avalanche shed that I've had to cycle through going down the mountains, something I was quite fearful of, every avalanche shed was free of traffic. It was just me and the space. That whether you've been through an avalanche shed, they're dark, they're noisy, they're damp. You can't see where all the potholes are. You can't see it very well. It was a miracle just the other day riding to Gander, going through the roadworks near Bishop Falls. It's hard enough in a car, on the bike, conscious of all the vehicles. Do you know, for that 2-kilometre stretch there were no vehicles behind. God has shown time after time after time on this journey His protection. One such protection I shared last night was going up the hill towards the Vermilion Pass. It's 72 kilometres uphill. The disciples didn't have to walk 72 kilometres uphill to get to the feeding of the 5,000. It wasn't that big of a mountain. 72 kilometres uphill. Just imagine. As I was going up that road, I saw an SUV coming down from the other way. And it pulled in to the side and put the hazard lights on. So as I cycled up to it, I was just about to ask the driver if he needed some help. And the driver simply pointed to the bushes his side and said, "Ben." Needless to say, I cycled really quickly then, up that hill. Then I thought, wow, did that driver have the presence of mind that once he saw a bear, he pulled it into a place where he could offer protective space. So he'd seen this cyclist coming up the hill. Wow. So after about 50 meters, I turned to look. I thought about going back and saying thank you, but there was no car there. The road was at least 1.5 miles, if not 2 miles long, and it was straight, just like this aisle in the church. Where did that car go? Who was in that car? I'm a former police officer in England. Used to looking at things in many different ways. The only conclusion I had is that was an angel. How many angels do we miss each day because we're too busy? How many angels do we miss that God is providing for us on our daily journeys and we don't recognize? And so on this journey of many miracles, I want to proclaim here to all of you that our God is alive. Our God is awesome. Our God is a God who does the miraculous. Our God is a God who loves His people so much. Our God is a God who wants us to be in relationship with Him. We know what it's like, husband and wife, if we don't give time to one another and we take each other for granted, the relationship sours. God is drawing us back into a relationship with Him and with each other, and wants His church to be a people of God who would share in the mission that God has for this world. 5 loaves, 2 bread, what good's that going to do? William, what good are you going to do in the face of so much slavery? Bike ride, what good is that going to do? So I want to finish with a little story. It's a true story from Portugal. And it's a story of the morning after a storm on the other side of the Atlantic from here. One day a man got up after that storm and he walked next to the beach. And he saw a young man. And the young man was bending down and throwing things into the sea. So he was intrigued. Didn't seem to be stoned. So he got to the beach and saw that the beach was littered with thousands and thousands of starfish. So he went up to the little boy and said, "What are you doing?" And the little boy said, "Well, if we don't put the starfish back into the sea, they're going to die. Well, what good are you going to do? What difference will you make?" And the little boy simply bent down, picked up a starfish, and said, "I can make a difference to this one," and threw it into the sea. Then he bent down again, picked up another one, "And I can make a difference to this one," and threw it in the sea. And then he bent down again, "I can make a difference to this one," and he threw it into the sea. And then the man got it. And the man started to join this little boy in throwing starfish back into the sea. And there were other people who were walking along the beach from later on that morning who also came to find out what was happening, and they joined in. And then there were other people who joined in as well. And through that day, thousands of starfish lives were saved. And they were saved because of the multiplication from a little boy who said, "I can make a difference to this one." This journey from unity, healing and reconciliation is a journey we have to make individually. Each of us committed in our hearts to make a difference with this one. To make a difference with this one. And a lot of that unity, healing and reconciliation first needs to happen in us. We need to know what has happened and what needs to be happening to bring about that full reconciliation. I'm praying that through this bike ride, this journey where I've met now 1,200 people in small groups and church services like this, plus all the radio broadcasts, I'm praying that there'll be people who will join me in trying to make a difference with this one and this one. One of the ways we can make a difference is through our fundraising. There are some churches who are fundraising now for a period of time, bringing in some funds, so that Indigenous ministries within the Anglican Church of Canada would be allowed to have some seed money to allow them to do some important ministry that they haven't had the money for yet. So Bishop Mark MacDonald and his small team of people, that they would have money for suicide prevention courses, that they would have money to provide teaching, to raise up leaders in some of the most isolated communities in Canada, certainly communities I cannot cycle to. I'm praying that every diocese in Canada will give a small sum and share in a token $800,000 package of seed money. The Diocese of Gwpal, I'm praying that we would have $200,000 to add to that sum, that we could give Indigenous ministries $1 million to begin the important work that they feel that God is calling them to do, but they don't have the resources for. Could you join me? Could you join a whole host of people across Canada to pray for unity, for healing, for reconciliation? And could you join in the fundraising effort to raise this money to aid this important ministry? Because it's important to this one, and it will make a difference to this one. And so my prayer is that we would move from fine words of apology and to be a people that will walk together in unity. The acronym for unity that I have is you and I, tied or yoked together. Jesus' yoke is light. Its burden is easy. Are we willing to be tied or yoked to a people who we can be sisters and brothers? And so the final picture I want to give you is the picture of a cycle wheel. A cycle wheel has spokes that go from the hub in the center, and the spokes go either side to the center of the rim. Okay? So spokes come from either side of the hub to the center of the rim. For many a year, those spokes have not been equally tensioned in our church. We've ended up with a wobbly wheel. And I couldn't have done what I've done cycling across Canada with a wobbly wheel. Those spokes need to be equally tensioned from both sides in order for that wheel, that beautiful circle, to be true. Can we be equally tensioned within our church, despite our differences, despite our past, that we can come to the divine bicycle mechanic, our God, and be equally tensioned? I pray that we can. So let us pray. Dear Lord, we thank you for you are awesome, so majestic, so worthy. We are sorry for the things we've done in our own lives, also in our history as a church of people. Lord, we repent and ask that in this repentance we turn to you and turn to each other in a new and living way, that you may be glorified and your people healed and edified. I pray in Jesus' name.